behalf of India FinTech Forum, I, Aditya, would like to share this interview with Mr. Ajit. Ajit has a 3 decade experience in the banking sector, such as Citibank, DBS, and currently he's the CEO and chairman of Validus. Validus has been regarded as the top 10 fintech firms to be looked for in Singapore. And today we'll certainly like to discuss about the emerging fintech forum, fintech space in India as well as in Southeast Asia. So hi Ajit.
Hi, Adit.
Uh, so going by your illustrious banking career across the Southeast Asia, please tell us about your journey from leaving such a established banking corporate career and then joining a startup. I'd like to know about your vision behind Validus.
Okay. Yeah, Aditya, thanks for having me on your show. Yeah, I've spent almost 30 odd years in banking. Spent time with Citibank, which was my alma mater, then spent time with DBS, and also a local bank in Indonesia called Bank Danamon, which was owned by uh, Temasek / Fullerton, where I was seconded to that bank. And in my 30 years in banking, I've had the fortune of, particularly in Citibank, where we pioneered the SME lending concept back in '96, and we built an SME franchise globally from scratch that was replicated across, I think, 12, 13, 14 countries back in '96. And you feel happy that looking back so many years, that business still exists. It's called, those days it was called Emerging Local Corporate. Now it's called the Commercial Bank. But I was part of that initial thought process of Citibank getting into the SME space back in '96, which was quite unusual for a foreign bank those days. Also in DBS, I had the unique opportunity of conceptualizing and executing the regional architecture really for DBS's existing SME business. When I came back from Bank Danamon, where I headed up the SME and commercial business in Indonesia for almost 5 years. So it's been a great journey, learning a lot about SME for the last 20 odd years in Citibank, which is a global bank, in DBS, which is a regional bank, and also in Danamon, which is a very local bank. So, and I've had the good fortune of being posted across geographies. So not just Southeast Asia, but, I was in India, in Jakarta, in Singapore, in Johannesburg, in Prague. So I've been fortunate enough to see SME businesses across geographies and across different kinds of banks, both local, regional, and global. And I thought it would be it was time for me to use this little bit of experience that I have in SME to really do something on my own in an entrepreneurial capacity by joining or starting Validus along with two other co-founders of mine. So it was really, I wouldn't use the word monetizing, sounds too commercial. Really using my experience
Yeah,
to
sure.
really address the needs for SMEs, which, in spite of the fact that I have so much, I had the good fortune of being in so many countries, I still found that there was a yawning gap in terms of SME financing across the region, and that was the reason or the raison d'être for starting Validus back in.
Okay.
It was started back in 2015, but we gave our first loan in 2016 early.
Okay.
So it's been fun.
So talking about the SME lending only. So there is a lot of emerging startups in this area. So how would you associate the risk? Like there are a lot of people going about lending. So how do you assess the risk of the whole system?
Yeah, great question. From our perspective, Validus is really been set up to be a catalyst for sustainable growth for SMEs in the region, in ASEAN. That's our focus area. We really want to drive financial inclusion for SMEs based on the experience that we've had, where we, like I said, we found a huge financing gap for SMEs, even in a country like Singapore, where we started off first. Even in Singapore, the research indicates that the unmet need for SMEs is close to $15 billion Singapore dollars of financing needs that are not met by the existing banks. And that's where platforms like us come in, really to meet that gap for SMEs in the regions that we are present, whether it's Singapore and of course we're in Indonesia and so on and so forth. I think some of the risks for SME lending, I'm sure you know as well as I do, is it is considered a much higher risk customer segment than the corporate business. Um, and therefore, a lot of banks, a lot of uh, financial institutions, while they do lend to SMEs, they tend to shy to lend to an SME without often hard collateral. So, which means a bank will tell the SME, we love you, we want to finance you, but can you give me some hard collateral? And when I say hard collateral, I mean, land, building, plant, machinery, something that a bank can touch, not so much against receivables and inventory. And that's, the point is that often companies, by the nature of their business, just don't have that kind of collateral. Uh, and that's where some of the risks are associated with the SMEs. How do you lend to this SME when he does not have hard collateral by the nature of his business? A good example is a wholesale distributor. A distributor has lots of inventory, has some receivables, but does not have any plant machinery. He buys goods and sells goods. So how do you lend to him in a manner that addresses his need and cover the risks associated by lending to him? And you asked the right question. What are the risks associated with lending to SMEs? One is, of course, there's a lot of a lack of availability of transparent financials pretty much across the, and I've been in so many countries across the my various experiences. We find that the level of detail and the level of reliability of financials for SMEs is low. And therefore, you cannot base your judgment on lending to that SME completely based on financials, because you could end up with using financials which are unreliable. Secondly, is the uh, lack of availability of hard collateral. That is a risk, because you just don't get that. A lot of customers don't have hard collateral to give you as a lender, even if you want to. The other risk in SMEs, lending to SMEs, is given that they are the end or the lowest end of the food chain in corporates. I'm not talking retail. In downturns, they tend to be impacted faster and more than a large corporate. A
Sure,
good
sure.
example is right now.
Mhm.
In a COVID type situation or any situation that happens in a macro downturn, SMEs tend to get impacted more faster, and therefore the choice of the customers and how you onboard the customer and who you onboard becomes extremely important if you want to lend to an SME segment. Of course, there is also other risks associated with SME lending, that you do not have often credit bureau scores on SMEs in many countries. They just don't exist. You might have individual credit bureau scores, but you do not have credit bureau scores for SMEs in many of the markets we operate. And of course, therefore, with all that as a backdrop, it is often not easy to predict their cash flows in terms of what they need or what they don't need for the future. Uh, and these are some of the risks that all of us, be included platforms, banks, finance companies, are dealing with the same level of risks for SMEs. Having said that, it's the largest part of any economy. Give or
Yeah,
take,
sure.
they represent 40, 50, 60% of GDP, 70, 80, 90% of the employment in any country, and therefore are very core pillar for any country's growth, and therefore cannot be avoided and need to be supported if you want the country to grow. You cannot stay away from SMEs. They need us a lot, and the country needs them a lot to grow.
So going on the same line, I would like to ask you, so what is the main framework or the metrics you see while selecting the SME?
Uh, there is no silver bullet, yeah. Aditya. We look at a whole host of metrics when in our algo, our credit model, uh, our rating process. Starting from which target market do we want to be in, which industries do we want to be, which sectors do we want to be in. We have a very logical process for identifying which sectors do we want to be in, which is based on a combination of risk and reward and size and number of SMEs and barriers to entry and so on and so forth. We also have a proprietary fraud algo or a fraud model that we run on every single SME, because in this business, I wouldn't say fraud is omnipresent, but there are chances of fraudulent financials coming to you, fraudulent cash flows coming to you, fraudulent bank statements being submitted. And therefore, we have another mandatory check that we use in terms of checking the numbers for fraud from whether the financials are fraud or the bank statement submitted to us are fraud. And then we have our own proprietary credit model or an algorithm. I think people like the word algo, but the credit model that we use to evaluate SMEs, which is a combination of financials, non-financials, surrogate data, and also some amount of proprietary data that we have ourselves, which others don't have.
Okay.
And a combination of these really leads to us, being able to write a model that is, we believe, fairly robust. But it's evolving all the time, because the more information we have, the more data we have, the more the model works by itself to be upgraded, and which really throws out, ultimately we want risk and reward to be in balance, which throws out a pricing which is based on risk and which gives adequate reward to our investors or on the platform. So there is no single bullet that works. There's a combination of target market, fraud, surrogate data, financial data, non-financial data, trade data. And of course, whatever data is available out there in each of our markets is something that we will always capitalize on and use in our credit models. Unfortunately, that's not standardized across, Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand, because each of the countries you get a different level of non-financial data, which is incorporated into our models in our credit models in each of the countries.
Okay. So now let's go to the funding side. I would like to ask, like, how do you convince a patron to fund? Because Validus being a platform model.
Yeah. When you say patron, you mean an investor, right? To
Yeah, yeah,
invest.
investor. I
Yeah.
actually mean an
Okay.
investor.
Yeah. Well, one is, in Singapore, we've been around now in terms of giving loans since 2016. So we've been around for 4 years. So it's a lot. So we have track record, performance, visibility for almost 4 years in Singapore. And therefore, our ability at raising funding from the word you used was patrons or investors, as we call them, is a lot easier than in a market like, say, Vietnam or Indonesia, where we are still relatively young. We're just a year old. That is from our perspective. But two, from more importantly, from a market perspective, I think there's a fair amount of socializing that needs to be done, education that needs to be done with these investors, because what we tell them is this is an alternate asset class for them.
Yeah, sure.
One, just as a backdrop, Aditya, we do not onboard retail investors on the platform. Okay,
Yeah,
we only have what are called accredited investors on the platform. So these are high net worth individuals, family offices, hedge funds, and so on and so forth, non-retail. Uh, and therefore, their understanding of risk and reward, we believe, is different from a typical retail investor.
yeah,
And that's why we like that profile. Having said that, there's a fair amount of education and socializing that needs to be done to convince them that this alternate asset class makes sense from them, both from a risk and a reward perspective. So we do not promise crazy returns like, some other platforms, 18%, 30%, 40%. That's not our business. Our target market customer is a reasonably lower risk profile, and understandably, therefore, because their risks are lower, their reward is also commensurate with that. So we have, over the last couple of years, Touchwood built a strong reputation as a very credible platform, not just in terms of lending, but also our shareholders are marquee names, right? So that gives us a fair amount of credibility. Our shareholders are Vertex Ventures, which is part of Temasek, FMO, which is the Dutch DFI, Open Space Ventures, Siam Cement Group, and so on and so forth. All marquee names are our shareholders, which also gives the investors or the potential investors a certain amount of comfort that we are backed by the right kind of shareholders.
yeah,
Um, and ultimately, I think that the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So ultimately, an investor will come to you, even whatever you socialize, you convince him it's an alternate asset class. And we're not really asking for the core money of the investor. We're saying if you have $100, we're asking for the last mile $5.
sure.
Try out this alternate asset class. Try out this and see if it makes sense, because these are short-term assets, periods of 90 days. These are not like 5-year loans. In our case, a lot of the loans are originated through partners, which are large companies. So the risk is essentially on a large company in the context of Singapore, like an SMRT or a Keppel or a ST Engineering. These are big names on whom the risk is primarily taken in some of our products. And that has really led to, and of course, being in an interest rate environment where we're near zero and likely to be for the next couple of years, also doesn't harm us, right? It benefits us because we are offering an investor a return which is much higher than the return that he would get in the market given the interest rates are being so low. And if he can back that up with a model or a credit model that works and he doesn't end up losing his shirt, which is, touch wood, we ask them to diversify their portfolio, it does lead to a meaningful amount of money that we get from funders.
Okay.
Of course, the earlier, I mean, in the newer countries, we have to go through the process from day one. And therefore, there it takes a little longer compared to, say, Singapore, where we are a known entity now, in spite of everything that I've said.
So I would like to know what is the new normal for you and your business post this COVID?
Well, I think the new normal for all of us here is this is I think working from home is become uh, a new normal. I think we have to accept it. Um, but I think luckily for us, since we're a fintech platform, we're a technology platform, you know, migrating or moving away from working from office to working from home. And the first couple of months, everybody was working from home, right? 100% of the people didn't impact our business or our ability to approve or disburse or collect or anything because our platform being a fintech technology platform allowed us to do that migration from office to working from home quite seamlessly and didn't really, of course, we had a little bit of teething trouble, but not, I mean, we thought it would be a lot more difficult, but luckily because we're a tech platform, that transition happened quite smoothly. And I think going forward we have to accept that there will be, I don't know whether it'll be 100% back to work or 50% back to work, but irrespective of what it is, I think we are ready and prepared, and now over the last 3-4 months it's been tested for us as a platform that it can work for us. So what it is, I don't know whether it's going to be 50, 100. I think time will tell. But I think that's a given. This new normal of working from home and
Okay.
being able to deliver solutions to customers seamlessly, straight through, automated, without with minimal human interface or as little as possible, is something that we have tried, tested, and done in this COVID situation over the last several months, which really gives us comfort that, should this continue in the future exactly as it is now, whatever the number is, 50%, we are ready. And it will not impact, more importantly, the experience our customers feel, because we have investors as customers and we also have borrowers as customers. And I don't think we've had an experience decline in what the customer felt pre and post this COVID situation. I think also, of course, from a, that is us as Validus, but also from a SME, our customer situation, the SME borrowers, of course, the COVID has created, stress and in the industry, some more, some less. But like I said earlier, in any situation, particularly like in a COVID situation where SMEs tend to get impacted a lot more than a large corporate. That's the nature of the customer segment, and that will happen, and that is happening. Fortunately for us, because of our model, which is quite unique and different from other platforms, which is a very partnership-driven, partnership ecosystem-driven customer origination and onboarding model, we have not been as, I would say, badly impacted as some of, we believe, our competitors. So this COVID really has led to, a lot of SMEs who will be impacted, and some might even go out of business going forward. The usual industries, tourism and air travel and hotels and some of the services industries have got impacted severely. And there is no line of sight into whether they will survive this in the next 3-4 months or whether they will, restaurants, bars, some of them will die, unfortunately. But, at the same time, there are enough of SMEs in this, thanks to this COVID, who've just been forced to accelerate their whole digitization process, which has happened across the market, but also for our SMEs, where they've just been forced to fast track it by not a couple of weeks or months, but probably a couple of years to stay in business, to reduce costs, to be more automated, to be more straight through, and that's been good. I mean, not just for SMEs, but for the whole market. Also from a community, our investor community, which is the patrons, the word you use for our platform, we are seeing that being positive for us, Aditya, because a lot of customers who have the investors who would like to come on the platform find this alternate asset class extremely attractive now, particularly with the interest rate environment that we are in and likely to be for the next couple of years. So it's really a supremely attractive asset class for them, and that has been positive for us. So the amount of interest we are seeing in investors coming on board our platform as investors has increased meaningfully in this COVID.
Okay. So I would like to ask now that what are your future plan for Validas?
Well, we've always said that, Singapore was where we started because we wanted to test our strategy, make sure that the product fits the market needs and really achieve pole position in Singapore, which we've done now for the last couple of years. So we are by a long shot the largest platform in terms of sheer disbursements per month in Singapore compared to anybody else. And really, we want to use our knowledge, our pilot experience in Singapore in terms of the model, in terms of straight through processing, in terms of automation, technology, all our AI, machine learning, and launch it in other countries that we feel have a large market from an SME perspective. So with that as a backdrop, we have launched in Indonesia last year in May. So we are just over a year old in Indonesia. We launched in similar a platform in Vietnam in last in November. So we are about 9-10 months old there, and we will also launch a platform in Thailand over the next couple of months. So by the end of the year, we will be in 4 countries: Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand. We do not, and I think after we do that, we want to take a breath and really go a mile deep and not go a mile wide. So we're at this point of time saying once we've launched these other countries, Thailand included, we really want to go and achieve the same pole position in each of the countries that we are present in: Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand in the shortest possible time. So that's our next focus. And I don't think we have any plans for at this point in time. I can never say never, but at this point in time, is really move from wherever we are to pole position in all the markets that we're present, just like we did in Singapore.
So this is a general question for all the budding entrepreneurs. So I would like to ask you that what message would you give to the new generation of entrepreneurs, especially in the fintech ecosystem during this COVID pandemic?
Oh, well, in the COVID situation, I think the simple message to all, entrepreneur friends in fintechs or otherwise, I think it doesn't matter. Any startup, I think the most important thing is, guys, stay liquid. Stay with as much cash as you can. Review expenses. Don't have unnecessary cash burn on hobbies. Focus on your business that is core, because believe me, whoever is the last man standing at the end of this crisis, and I don't know how long it's going to take, whether it's 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, whoever is the last man standing with enough of cash and enough of liquidity will be the winner.
Okay.
There will be a lot of people who will fall by the wayside, unfortunately, in this COVID situation, a lot of startups. And therefore, for all startup friends, I say, stay focused, keep the team motivated. Very, very, very important. These are trying times. People are concerned, do I have a job, don't have a job? Keep the team together, keep them motivated, and most importantly, stay liquid, buddies. Don't run out of cash. In fact, I would even go one step further and say, if you can raise cash in this environment, COVID environment, even if it means you raise it at a slight discount to what you think is the fair valuation, do it. Because only the last man standing or the last men standing will survive. A lot of guys will fall by the wayside.
I think that will be all for today.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks. Take care. Be safe. Be careful. And nice talking to you. Yeah.
Nice. I thank everyone, and especially Mr. Ajit for sharing his valuable insights in the SME lending space across the Southeast Asia. Thank you, Ajit, and have a great week ahead.
Bye.
Bye.